Hello student, today we are going to discuss about the nervous system. So what is nervous system? So nervous system is made up of lots of neuron and supporting cell, or we can say it regulates smooth body system using direct connection called nerves. Also it enables us to sense and response to stimuli. So the nervous system detects and responds to changes inside and outside the body. Together with the endocrine system, it coordinates and control vital aspects of body function and maintain homeostasis. And after that, the nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves. The structure and organization of the tissue that form these components enable rapid communication between all parts of the body. So next is the organization of the nervous system. The human body is composed of one nervous system that can be subdivided into the central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. The brain and the spinal cord make up the CNS, while the PNS is made up of nervous system outside the brain and spinal cord, including 12 pair of cranial nerves and 31 pair of spinal nerves and peripheral sensory receptors. The PNS can be further subdivided into the ANS and the somatic nervous system, depending on which type of muscle it innervates and whether or it is voluntary control. And the ANS can be subdivided into sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It is a sympathetic branch of ANS that is responsible for the fright, flight or fight response elicited by encounter with the bear. Another example of sympathetic response that might be a little closer to home would be your body reaction after being jilted by your fiance and the altar. You can imagine that your heart rate would increase. You might start to hyperventilate and you definitely would have no desire to eat. A sympathetic response can also occur during illness or physical trauma from anxiety or pretty much any stressful situation. Such a response is characterized by increased heart rate and blood pressure, goosebump, pupil dilation called mydriasis, bronchial dilation, and increased blood flow to cardiac and skeletal muscles. The parasympathetic division, on the other hand, is responsible for energy conversion, like rest and digest. Activities include decreased heart rate, blood pressure and respiration, constriction of the pupil, increased secretion and peristalsis of digestive tract, and increased urination or salivation, lacrimation, urination and defecation. May be useful to remember some of the response that caused by the parasympathetic division in certain organs. Other hand, some sweat and salivary gland, most secretion of body increase when parasympathetic nervous system is activated. And the ANS innervate visceral organ which are unconsciously controlled by the brain. Visceral organ contain either smooth or cardiac muscle. Respective example include the intestine and the heart. Interestingly, if visceral organ is removed from body and placed in an oxygenated ringer solution, it will continue to undergo peristalsis. Peristalsis means a wave like smooth muscle contraction of the GIT tract, or beat without even being connected to ANS. This is called autorhythmicity. When then do you ask, is the ANS even necessary for this organ to function? The answer is it is not. But the answer is necessary to regulate the activity of these organs, essentially causing them to speed up or slow down in the order to maintain homeostatic condition in the body. Usually each visceral organ is innervated by nerves from both sympathetic and parasympathetic division, and effect of these division are most often in opposition to one another. This type of wiring is called dual automatic innervation. Like the heart is a good example of this.
So neuron. A neuron, it is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system, and it is a specialized type of cell to transmit information throughout the body. And there are about 100 billion neurons in the human brain, and each neuron consists of cell body and processes one axon and many dendrites. Okay, this is the real image of neuron. And one important thing is that the neurons are commonly referred to as nerve cells, and the bundle of axons bound together are called nerves. And neurons cannot divide, and for survival they need a continuous supply of oxygen and glucose. So now we come to the structure of neuron. In the structure of neuron, nerve cells or neuron are structurally and the functional unit of the nervous system, and it consists of three major parts, namely cell bodies, dendrite and the axons. So first is dendrites. So dendrites, there are many short processes that receive and carry incoming impulses towards cell bodies, and that they have same structure as axon but are usually shorter and branching. And in the motor neurons, dendrites form a part of synapse, and in sensory neuron they form the sensory receptor that responds to specific stimuli. The next is axons. Axons and dendrites are the extension of cell bodies and form the white matter of the nervous system. And axons carry information away from cell body to the dendrites of a neighboring neuron, and it is found deep in the brain and in group called tracts. And the periphery of the spinal cord, they are referred to as a nervous or nerve fiber outside the brain and the spinal cord, and each nerve cell has only one axon which begin at a tapered area of the cell body, which is called axon hillock, and their function is they carry impulses away from cell body and usually longer than the dendrites, sometimes as long as 100 centimeters. Next is myelin and the nodes of Renewal. So large axons and those of peripheral nerves are surrounded by a myelin sheath. This consists of a series of sequence cells arranged along the length of axon. Each one is wrapped around the axon so that it is covered by a number of concentric layers of sequence cell plasma membrane, and between this layer the plasma membrane is the small amount of fatty substances called myelin, and the outermost layer of sequence cell plasma membrane is the neurolemma, and these are tiny area of exposed exolemma between adjacent sequence cell called nodes of Ranvier, which assist the rapid transmission of nerve impulses in myelinated neuron. So next is the types of neuron. There are three types of neuron. First is sensory neuron, second one is interneuron, and the third is the motor neuron. In the sensory neuron, what is sensory neuron? Sensory neuron are the nerve cells that are activated by sensory input from the environment. For example, when you touch a hot surface with your fingertips, the sensory neuron will be ones firing and sending off signal to rest of the nerve system about the information they have received. And the input that activates sensory neuron can be physical or chemical, corresponding to all five of our senses. Thus, a physical input can be things like sound, touch, heat or light. A chemical input comes from the taste or smell, which neuron then send to the brain. So most sensory neurons are pseudo-unipolar, which means they only have one axon which splits into two branches, and the second one is the interneuron. So in interneuron, it is the one in between, they connect spinal motor or sensory neuron, so as well as they transferring signal between sensory and the motor neurons. And interneurons can also communicate with each other, forming circuit of various complexity. So they are multipolar just like motor neuron. And the third one is the motor neuron. So motor neuron of the spinal cord are part of central nervous system and connect to muscles, gland and organ throughout the body. And these neurons transmit impulses from spinal cord to skeleton and the smooth muscles, and it directly control all of our muscles. They are in fact two type of motor neurons, like those that travel from spinal cord to muscles are called lower motor neuron, whereas those that travel between the brain and spinal cord are called upper motor neurons. So motor neuron have the most common type of body plan for a nerve cell, and they are multipolar, each with one axon and several dendrites. Now the next is the neuroglia. So what is neuroglia? Neuroglia is the neuron of the central nervous system that's supported by non-excitable glial cells that greatly outnumber the neurons. Unlike nerve cell which cannot divide, glial cells continue to replicate throughout the life, and they are the support to the neurons, and we also call the glial cells, and these are involved in many specialized function like support of the neuron. So how many type of neuroglia? So neuroglia in the CNS is astrocytes, microglial cell, ependymal cell and oligodendroids, and in the PNS, peripheral nervous system, this is called satellite cells and the sequence cell are two kinds of neuroglia. So first is astrocytes. So the shape of astrocytes are the star-like, and it is the most abundant glial cell in the CNS. They have many radiating processes which help in clinging to the neurons and the capillaries. They support and brace the neuron and anchor them to nutrient supply lines. They help in the guiding the migration of young neuron, and astrocytes control in chemical environment around the neuron. Next one is the microglial cell. So microglial cells are the smallest and the least numeral glial cell. These cells may be derived from monocytes that migrate from the blood into the nervous system before birth, and they are found mainly in the area of blood vessels, and they enlarge and become phagocytic, removing microbes and damaged tissue in the area of inflammation cell destruction. Third one is the ependymal cell. These cells form epithelial lining and of the ventricles of the brain and the central canal of the spinal cord, and those cells that form the choroid plexus of the ventricle, and it secrete CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. The next one is the oligodendrocytes. These are the smaller than astrocytes and found in cluster round nerve cell bodies in grey matter, where they are thought to have supporting function. They are found adjacent to along the length of myelinated nerve cells. Oligodendrocyte cells form maintain myelin like sequence in the peripheral nerves. So in the PNS, satellite cell and the sequence cell. In the satellite cell, these cells surround the neuron cell bodies in the PNS, and they are analogous to the astrocytes in the CNS. And the sequence cells, it also surrounds the nerve fiber in the PNS and form myelin sheath around the nerve fiber, and they are found in the PNS. And its function is to similar to oligocytes, that is its line up along the nerves and produce an insulating cover called myelin sheath. Okay, thanks a lot.